Welcome to the Festivus Podcast, Executive Edition, supported by Liberry Consulting and hosted by Julian Scott, animation consultant at Film London. I'm Rob Doherty, and in this podcast series we chat to the head honchos, the big cheeses, the numero unos of the kids and family media world. Theirs are the names you see on credits and conference listings with executive alongside. And you've wondered, how did they get there? What influenced them? Who inspired them? And how do I get there? Along the way, hopefully, we'll get to know these enigmatic and powerful people just a little better and realise, wait, they're just like normal human beings after all. And maybe, just maybe, I too can reach those dizzying heights in my career. I hope you enjoy their journeys. If you'd be interested in sponsorship or advertising of this podcast, or indeed the website and events, please drop us a line at aloha@fstvs.net. That's aloha@fstvs.net. Feel free to suggest guests too. This week on the podcast, we're joined by Paul Young of Cartoon Saloon, producer, director, co-founder, accidental salesman, and possibly the only man in animation whose career began with Greek beach caricatures and illegal late-night sandwich sales. Paul talks about building Cartoon Saloon from a scrappy Kilkenny startup into one of the most admired studios in the world, why some of the best industry deals happen after midnight, and how a studio can still make world-class animation while letting people go at 5 p.m. It's a funny, honest, and quietly inspiring conversation about creativity, persistence, and making beautiful 2D films in a 3D world. Perfect listening for anyone just back from Animation Dingle this last weekend, or anyone who's ever wondered about how sandwiches, orphanages, cartoons, Oscar nominations, and beatboxing somehow end up in the same career.
Paul, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you very much, Julian, for inviting me. It's a great pleasure.
Well, it's good. It's good to hear your voice.
I'm a big fan of Festivus and Rob and all that, and yeah, it's great. I spotted him in Manchester at the animation festival in Manchester. We had a pint.
Oh, did you?
It was good to catch up. Yes.
I'm sorry I can't offer you a pint right now, but I know you've got tea.
I have tea. Yeah.
So that's good. So listen, let's start by chatting a little bit about Cartoon Saloon as a studio. The rumour is that you discovered you could make more money selling caricatures to tourists on the beach than selling sandwiches. And that was what led you to enrolling on an animation course. Is that right?
Yeah, sort of. Well, do you know what that was? It was a mad story because myself and a couple of mates had, during doing the caricatures in Greece, I found I could make money basically drawing. It was the first time I earned money, apart from when I was quite young and I did illustrations for a book. And then I realised we went to try and find work in Greece, and a friend of ours had sort of arranged that we would have work in a bar in like Eos. No, it wasn't Eos, it was Paros on the Greek islands. And we were very young. I think it was like after we'd left school. And this was a bit mad. It's like we were only quite young, 16, 17, we went out to Greece for that summer, working summer. But we didn't have any money at the start, so we made sandwiches for the clubbers coming out of the clubs.
Oh, really? Early morning sandwiches?
Yeah, we realised that there wasn't a lot of late night burger places. There just wasn't any. And we thought we saw a gap in the market there. So we started to make sandwiches during the day because we really did not have any money going over to Greece. And so we started selling sandwiches to all a lot of British and Irish holidaymakers coming out of the dances, or coming out of the clubs. And we made a fortune selling sandwiches because they were mad. But then the police chased us away from it. And then because there was only one guy allowed down the road to have a restaurant open. It was illegal, obviously. We shouldn't have been doing that. There was probably all regulations we were breaking. But anyway, we got other jobs. I worked in the Slovakia shop for a while, and I spotted these Ukrainian artists across the road on the beach, and they were like sitting down doing portraits of people with their spotlights and everything, and earning way more cash than we were getting a night. So I decided to sit with them. I quit the burger Slovakia. I sat with them, and as people were watching other people get their portraits done, I would do caricatures of them and sell them for a $5, which on a couple of ones we had way more than what I was making the burger joints was, I can actually make money doing some drawing. Anyway, it was just a little anecdote I used to tell to kids, about, earning money drawing. It can be done. Yeah. So and then I went on to art college, and I tried as an illustrator for a while, and I put a portfolio around London. I lived in Brighton and Edinburgh for a bit, but also I heard about a course in Ballyfermot in animation, and everybody coming out of the course in Ballyfermot seemed to be snapped up by Disney Paris or by Disney in the US. There was a very good flow of doing the course and getting hired, so I went over and I joined that course. Yeah, I'd already done a degree in art and design as well at this stage. Yeah.
When did you find out that you had a talent for art and illustration? Was that when you were pretty young, when you were a kid?
Yeah, I'd say very young. Yeah, I just loved it. I mean, I think I was always drawing in school, and I did art. We didn't do art in school. In the secondary school, I had to go down to the convent with a mate of mine once a week to do the art class down there, which was great fun. And then I got this woman in town in Boyle in County Roscommon taught us a bit of art in the evenings. But my brother came home from Australia one time with a load of Gary Larson books and Bloom County and Calvin and Hobbes, those collections, and a magazine called Comic Relief. We used to collect all the editorial cartoons from the States and the comic strips from the US that he had got in Australia, posted to him. And I just swallowed them. And 2000 AD, I was a big fan of 2000 AD as well. So I just loved those. I really wanted to be a comic strip artist. Mm-hmm. And I was a big fan of Ralph Steadman and Gerald Scarfe and people like that. So when I went to art college in Belfast, I had a great tutor there, Andy Shields, in my foundation course, who introduced me to all those guys like Ralph Steadman and Gerald Scarfe. And when you had to go to a library to get any kind of reference, there's no internet. You had to go to a library and find books and find all these cool books. And I'm a big fan of Quentin Blake as well. So my career ambition was to be an illustrator. Yeah.
And did you find, because sometimes you find people, from my perspective, I started off in the theatre. My dad was really anti me working in the theatre and wanted me to get a proper job. Did you have anybody in your life, like at school, or anybody saying, "Oh, Paul, no, get a proper job," but none of this illustration stuff?
Well, it didn't. My father was really good. All my brothers were. I'd three brothers who were all quite sporty and were in football, and I wasn't particularly. But Dad was pretty encouraging. The mum and Dad knew that I was more on the creative side and enjoyed music and drawing and things like that. And so I do appreciate Dad, because he used to have all the trophies of my brothers, but then he'd put beside the trophies, he'd have my drawings. So when people come visit the house, says, "Oh, Sean won the Badminton Connacht Championship, and Liam was in the senior All-Ireland football final, and Paul does the drawing, and here's some." So he hung up my drawings next to the trophies, which was good. He knew that if I enjoyed it, basically I was going to do well. If I really enjoyed doing it, I'd stick with it. Yeah. So he did encourage me. They were a bit afraid when I finally decided to go to art college. Says, "How would you not become a teacher?"
All right.
And I says, "Oh yeah, I suppose there's always that, but I really just do want to try this." And then when we wound up setting up the company, he did help out. He even helped out getting our first bank loan by guarantoring with another man I knew, Desi McLaughlin, and he did help in that way too. So he was good support, my father. And then some of the teachers around me in school, even though we didn't do art in the school I was in, the teachers I went to down in the convent were very encouraging. But yeah, most in Ireland at the time, there wasn't really much of a future if you were going into art. You were generally encouraged to become a teacher, a banker, or some kind of profession like a solicitor or an accountant, engineer. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, you've proven that's not the case. You can actually make a career and do well out of art and creativity.
Yeah. It always feels like even though we feel a bit of success over the years, running your own animation studio, you're always never quite secure. You never feel quite secure. But yeah, we've been doing pretty well so far. Yeah.
So when you co-founded Cartoon Saloon with Tom Moore and Nora Twomey, is that how you? Sorry,
Nora Toomey, yes.
Toomey, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah,
no worries.
What brought the three of you together?
We met in Ballyfermot.
Oh, yeah.
So when I went there, I was probably old because I'd done 4 years already of a degree, but I was still quite young because I went to college when I was 17 up to Belfast University, and then a year out. So I went to Ballyfermot, which was like a post-leaving certificate. It wasn't really a degree then, although it is now. And so I met Tom. I met Nora's boyfriend was in my year, and I was sharing my drawings with Michael McGrath, and he says, "Oh, I know somebody who'd love these drawings." So he took it home to his house, and Tom and Lieslot, Tom Moore and Lieslot, his wife Ulfson, they lived above each other in a flat or in 2 apartments, and all of us were in Ballyfermot, and so he just shared my drawings, and he says, "Oh, I must meet him." And then I really was a big fan of Tom's animation. So we just got to know each other in college, and mainly because Tom had a young child. At the time, he had Ben very young, him and Lieslot, and he really needed work. I also need work because I was more of a mature student. I needed to earn money. So we both had the hunger for earning some money while we were in Ballyfermot, while we were in the animation school. So I says, I think I might have this job to do CD-ROM for my brother-in-law's friends to do animation, and I don't think we can do this, too much work. He says, and Tom was like, well, we're surrounded by people. So we actually started on this one gig while we were in college and roped in much of our friends, including Nora and other people that are still with us in the studio.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, many, yeah. Jeremy Purcell, Fabian Erlinghauser, Lorraine Lorden. Yeah, lots of people are still with us from those days. And we started to do, like, back in the original internet bubble while we were in college, doing like little jobs like that. And then we kind of stuck together. And when we left, Tom had the idea for The Secret of Kells with Aidan Hart, another friend of his from Kilkenny. And so rather than us all going away, the only jobs really that were available to us were like in computer games. I think in the UK, very little animation was available at the time. It was during a sort of downturn at that time. There wasn't much animation going on, especially not 2D animation. But rather than going to computer games, like this is a time when Tomb Raider was coming out in Liverpool. The computer games were getting really big. A lot of our mates went off to do that. And we says, well, let's just pretend we're taking an extra year and we'll try to do some sort of trailer for this feature film, which became The Secret of Kells. We called it Rebel. And we came down to Kilkenny because there was free space there with young Irish filmmakers who Tom was in this organisation as a kid with Ross Stewart and Aidan Hart, which was amazing. We never had it when I was a kid, where it was an after school kind of programme club where you could go and make films. They'd give you cameras. Mike Kelly, who ran it, would encourage all the kids to write their own scripts and shoot. And the only people making the films were kids. There was no adults involved.
Wow.
So I think it gave Tom a great confidence as a teenager that if you work together, you can make stuff. If you're not worried about working together, if you collaborate, you can do a lot of things. So in the spirit of that, we went back down to Kilkenny, and Mike Kelly gave us this room above in an old orphanage over their offices for the year. Practically, it turned out to be the year, sort of nearly rent-free. And then we just used to bring kids up and teach them animation at the same time. And alongside that, we got some FOSS millennial culture fund. So it was like a training grant where we wrote our own training course. It's a bit like learning an apprenticeship, but we're apprentices to ourselves in a way. So we got this skills training funding for about £100 a week for every person. And we topped that money up with extra work, So it was like trying to scrape a bit of public funding, a bit of government funding to sort of train ourselves, set up a kind of, so we were beginning to learn about how you find money as well through all this. Yeah. So it started like that, yeah. It was kind of like very we were all in college. We all kept wanting to do 2D. We didn't want to do the computer. We didn't want to move into computer games. We all had ideas for what a cartoon could be, or so. And Tom was a very inspirational leader, creative leader, you know, as a young fella. And so people were wanting to come down and see what we could do together, basically. I tended to lean into the business side of things, the commercial stuff.
I was going to ask you about that because, you know, again, I read somewhere that you basically, you know, you took more of a business role in the early days because your desk was nearest the phone. Did you have just the one phone?
It is true.
Yeah.
It is kind of true. We were all there doing our stuff, you know. Back in the day, I did the illustrations for the CD-ROMs, and so we're all working together. But eventually, you know, we realized one or two of us are going to have to try and go out and get the work as well. But yeah, I had the phone and the one computer that we had. We had basically got loads of drawn tables, old-fashioned 2D desks, you know, with the glass, the discs, from a Murakami Wolf in a fire sale. Basically, Murakami Wolf was shutting down, and we bought them all the desks and set up. And so we were doing everything on paper, and one computer basically at the time, and a phone. And I started to ring the, you know, commercials agencies and the marketing agencies and advertising agencies in Dublin to see if we could get some commercials. And also through different people, we got jobs to do e-cards. You know, like where each of us would do a weekly e-card every week, like for €300. We'd get paid. You know, when people used to send birthday cards by email back in the day.
I remember.
Things like that. Yeah. So we're using Flash, when it first came out, you know. So I sort of started to become the traveling salesman for the company. And then we realized, how are we going to make, we had some money to make this trailer for Rebel, which was got together. And we went to the Irish Film Board, which was great, and gave us some development money after we develop a script and make a trailer. And then Jerry Sheeran, who I visited, myself and Tom did visit all the animation studios who were in Ireland to ask for advice and talk to them, and they're all great. And Jerry Sheeran particularly said you should go to MIPCOM, and he gave one of those big thick books and says, look up anybody with anim after their name, animation. And on that first trip, I remember meeting Cosgrove Hall and somebody telling me at MIPCOM, you know, you're going to need to meet somebody at least 7 times before they're going to give you any work, because, you know, they want to know if you're still going to be around, you know, so they want to know you're serious. And I could safely say after 7 meetings with Cosgrove Hall, they gave us our first bit of work.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And a few times I could say that. Yeah, it's, you know, you need to meet people a number of times. That's why Jerry was saying you just have to keep showing up, MIP-TV, MIPCOM, Kidscreen, all these places, and get to know people, because it's kind of the people you might meet in the hours of between midnight and 4 a.m. where suddenly you might meet the real contacts and say, oh, that's that person over there from the BBC. Do you want me to introduce you to them? Yes. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Yeah. So it's that kind of, I realized then the need to like be present in the market. And so I became the traveling salesman then to try to then sell our TV series, sell the movies, sell the features. Yeah.
Did you know that Festivus is so much more than just this podcast? Not only do we host regular free networking mixers in London, Annecy, Munich, Manchester, Bristol, Cannes and many other locations, as we have done now for 21 years, via our website we have so much more industry-related information that can be accessed. More creative-focused podcasts to illuminate and educate, the latest industry news powered by Squiggly Magazine, the latest training courses and other invaluable resources to help power your career. And we also have a jobs board to advertise roles directly to our 3,500 website subscribers and over 13,000 social media followers. Sign your studio up now and take advantage of our extremely reasonable rates for job postings. You'll be hitting the motherlode of creative talent. Go to FSTVS.net and start your day the Festivus way.
Where we are now in the industry, sort of globally, all the co-productions are coming back, and the need to sort of meet and work with people is happening again in person. And I was at the Focus event in London last week, and there was a panel about co-productions, and they were saying exactly what you've just said, was that you need to go to these places, you need to meet your potential co-production partners. You may not even know they are going to be your co-production partners several times, and then you get to the point where something happens, there's a spark, there's, oh, come and work with us on this. And because you already know them, you know what they're like, you know you know if you're going to get on with them.
Yeah. It's very, very important. And the buyers and people and investors and all the stakeholders in a project, be it a feature film or a TV series, the distributors, And so I remember even going up to visit the Dublin Creative Europe at the time. Remember there was, I think it was called something, Media Desk. Remember back in the day. And I just went up to her and she says, look, I just went up and I says, look, I actually don't have anything to pitch you. I just wanted to say hello. And so you know who we are, and we're down in Kilkenny, and we're trying this stuff, and we're doing animation. She always remembered it. She always used to say, like, you just came up and you introduced yourself. And then by the time we did have something, I says, here we are. I'm here back again, but actually this time I have a TV series, and can we have some money, please?
And did she?
And it made a big difference. She did, got the money. Yeah. It made a big difference because she was just aware of that we were around and we were serious. And I think, that's always, and then I had great people I met going to those first MIPCOMs. It was like jumping in at the deep end a bit because I didn't have any business training or education, but meeting people out there, even meeting Didier Brunner, who we co-produced Secret of Cows with back in the first cartoon movie we went to, literally meeting people on the bus. Colin Rose from the BBC. Remember on the first bus trip from the airport back in the day, it was great when you went to the cartoon movies. You got in the same flight usually with people and the bus ride in, and just handing out my business cards very eagerly to everybody, say we can do animation, and then people would come along to your pitch, which was great. And literally the lunch after the pitch, went for lunch with Didier and says, I'd like to co-produce your film, and here's a Belgian partner I know, they'd like to co-produce too. It's great. And then in MIPCOM meeting, I made a great pal out of it with Tom Van Waveren.
Yes, I know Tom. Yeah.
And we wound up co-producing Skunk Fu, our first TV series together, and we met at Cartoon Forum. But Tom was also a great mentor as well because he'd been around the business a bit longer. And even when it wasn't really a project we were doing together, he would still try to advise on who to talk to, and you meet lots of people like that over the years. Yeah, you
do, and I think it's one of the things, again, through these podcasts, is very much a recurring theme about actually what a really nice industry animation is as a business. And people, even though you're effectively competitors, people do try and help. They do try and point you in the right direction. So you should meet this person. It's just the kind of person who's one you should work with.
Yeah. It was the same for us. And I mean, at the time going to MIPCOM, there was only a handful of us from Ireland, maybe, going that are in animation. Then it grew very strong, and we all really helped each other out a lot. Like John Reynolds, he was there already working in the industry, but not for an Irish animation company at the time. And I kind of miss, you meet people more than you meet a lot of your friends. Yeah. You make very good friends. Yeah. I found because I've been directing for the last few years, I haven't been out in the market much. Other people have been going out. I kind of miss all my market buddies.
Yeah,
I'm kind of missing my friends that I'd meet at Kidscreen, MIPCOM, which the people you'd get the advice from. Maybe sometimes you might even do business with, but also then you'd relax with later in the evening and talk about your woes, and I kind of miss that actually a little bit. Might get back into it.
Now you just said you've been directing a lot over the last few years, but you and Tom and Nora, you seem to sort of move around in terms of roles on films and things, and you direct some, you produce some, you even do voice acting on some. So has over the 26 years that Cartoon Saloon's been running, have you, the three of you, sort of found specific roles within the studio that you do most of the time, or is it all a bit as, I've got this idea, I'd really like to direct this one, what do you think? And everyone else says, okay, great, and I'll produce it and I'll do this. Or that makes it sound very unstructured, and I don't mean it to, but I'm curious.
It was more, the me directing is a more recent thing. I mean, I suppose last 4 or 5 years, where it was a bit more like Tom and Nora have always been that creative directors directing something or helping other directors in their projects. They've also, like Nora co-directed The Secret of Cows with Tom, and then we had so they've always been involved in the creative side of things, and I've mainly been that producer doing the trips. And then we hired Jerry Sheeran, that person who gave us the great advice. I remember coming out of that meeting, myself and Tom, saying, geez, I wish we had a Jerry, because in his office he had all the schedules and budgets, and it was all paperwork, and that was something that was, we weren't attracted to the paperwork at all, or mathematics or numbers as creatives and we did just want to draw and just do the creative side of things. But I really enjoyed the sales and the travel. That was fine. But we coming out going, I wish we had a Jerry. And then a few years ago, and sadly Jerry's retiring at the end of this year. But we're having a big dinner with him on Saturday night. We're going out. But he was fantastic. So Jerry came in just at the beginning of Song of the Sea, and in a way, that freed me up a little bit. Jerry took on quite a bit of the business side of things. The business admin side of the business grew. I still was a producer with Jerry. I'd still go out and do the sales pitch, and we co-produced The Breadwinner, The Song of the Sea, Wolfwalkers, all those films during that time, and Puff and Rock, getting those shows off the ground. I was, the salesperson mainly, still doing those trips, and I'd come back saying, look who I met, these people are interested, and Jerry would close the deal. Jerry would suss about and come with me, and then more and more Jerry did the trips, and he did more trips as we solidified ourselves and knew people. Over the years, we got to really know people much better. There was less travel needed for me, and we built up a fantastic crew of producers in-house, or production people. And Tom and Nora were like, oh, Paul, it's you've always been talking about it. Now it's time you should have Tom was wanting to have a break. He took a sabbatical after Wolfwalkers, and Nora worked really hard The Breadwinner, and then did My Father's Dragon, and she was then helping with development of other ideas. And so then it was just because the company seemed to be structurally sound as far as admin and things like that, and cash flow coming in, and Jerry had really steadied the ship, as it were, and made us feel a bit more confident about what we wanted to do ourselves, which kind of was more like doing less service work, doing less of other people's projects, and focusing on the projects that we internally originate and create. And that was always the dream, but it's hard to do that. But over time, we managed to get to the point where we're moving from one original IP to the next, and the odd service job here and there, or co-production, things like that. But and then, just Tom and Laura saying, Paul, you've always been talking about directing. Why don't you come up with an idea? And that's how I did my first short, which turned it. I basically was like, what would a science fiction Cartoon Saloon film be like? It might be a slightly older audience, but I'm big into my science fiction. And just around that time, Lucasfilm called up, which it technically is a sort of service job, but it was very creatively free. And they says, would you like to do a Star Wars short set in their universe? And I sort of thought about it for a bit and then jumped at it. And then it was great, because it was a chance to create something original within the universe, write it ourselves. And they were just going to do one. They says, pitch us a couple and we'll do one of them. And so that was my first go at directing, which I really enjoyed. Yeah. And I've been doing it since.
I was intrigued by that, because an awful lot of the stuff that you do and you direct seems to be sort of steeped in Irish stories and folklore, and a lot about Irish culture. And I was wondering where Star Wars Visions fitted into that sort of, I don't know, sort of world of Paul Young and directing and everything else. But they came to you, and that was an opportunity. Yeah. I didn't realise you were a big sci-fi fan, so it makes sense now.
I mean, Star Wars, I guess, is fantasy in space a little bit rather than sci-fi. It's not hard sci-fi either, but it is sci-fi, really. It's just a mixture of fantasy and sci-fi. But the thing is, we did Skunk Fu as one of our first TV series. Tom's movies have tended towards the Irish folklore stuff, because we've got our Celtic folklore trilogy now. We've got them all out on even Blu-ray. People still want to buy Blu-rays.
Wow.
But they're nicely packaged now all together. But and then Nora did The Breadwinner, which was set in Afghanistan, based on that book. And My Father's Dragon was more a fantasy completely itself. But and then Puff and Rock is very Irish again, but it's nature-based fun for preschool kids. And so we're very open to doing lots of different things. And I think for Tom, next he'll want to do, maybe he's thinking about the next few movies will be what's the Irish story been like abroad in different countries.
Okay.
So we've one in development which will be set in the States, and we're thinking about other places. Nora has an idea that's going to be a crossover with Japan. And then Screech's Reach, we pretty much set it in a kind of, it was based on kind of an Irish ghost story or Irish folklore with the Banshee, and all the actors were Irish and Irish voices, so it has a very Irish feel. It's almost like West Kerry in a galaxy far, far away, if you know what I mean.
I do.
So it's got that real influence, yeah. So yeah, we leaned in some, because in fact that's what Lucasfilm kind of wanted. They wanted to bring cultures from around the world into the space. So if they wanted people to draw from their cultural heritage a little bit and come up with ideas based on that, which was an interesting pitch.
So that was your directorial debut in Screech's Reach.
Yes. Yeah. It was great, and I was very lucky because I was inheriting the crew that would just come off of Wolfwalkers, who were all super talented, and by the time I'm stepping into the director position, we've already figured an awful lot of stuff out compared to when poor Nora and Tom were starting out. We knew nothing, so I'm already well supported by a lot of people, who've been through more on the floor kind of directing than I have, and so I've been there as a producer, obviously, and I've seen it all, but not quite in the sort of minutiae as others would have been, So I've been lucky to be able to step in when our machine is pretty well oiled, Yeah.
It's always a bit of an asset, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
You were talking earlier on about the studio was in a good place. It was there was good cash flow and everything else. You've always, even though you didn't have necessarily the business training, you've always seems to have had that sort of entrepreneurial spirit, because you were a finalist, weren't you, in the Ernst & Young entrepreneurial contest?
Yeah, entrepreneur. They have this. Yes, they have this. Well, and that was and that came as a. We just went for it one time because somebody nominated us, so we got nominated, sort of, and we were told we were nominated into it, and we joined the. That was a really interesting experience. I got to meet lots of people from businesses wildly different to what animation. At that year, we were the only animation studio or media company in the competition from the Irish side, and it was great. It's a great organisation. Ernst & Young do it, and they really plot out a good year of excursions. So you get to go on trips, and that year we went to Germany and won for 1 week. All the finalists that year, and you have to stand up in front of all these business execs from pretty major successes in Ireland when it comes to IT, software, fintech, all these random people who had come up with means of like mobile phones in Africa, and sometimes there's social and charitable organizations as well. So all spectrum of businesses, and there's still a WhatsApp group, and I still once a quarter meet with some of these people every quarter to talk about my business, and everybody around the table talks about their business. Like I'm in with somebody from electrical company who's figured out an amazing bit of software that allows companies to, like, if you've got excess electricity or energy in your factory or in your thing, he's figured out a way where you can capture that and sell it back to the grid, and then he takes a cut. And he's setting up in America, Australia, or like amazing business. And he was an electrical engineer, same age as me, or younger than me actually. And then a pharma tech guy who creates. He was one of the people who would have created that mRNA for the COVID, and also for that disease that happened in South America. Oh, what was it called? It was a very serious disease, and they figured out how to recreate it. So create a vaccine. So random businesses. But yeah, I'd meet up with them and once a quarter, and we'd discuss our problems, our personal problems. And it's a great board. It's like having an amazing advisory board. for your business, and everybody's getting something. I actually get more out of listening to their project problems because I go, I didn't realize I had that problem, but I have that problem. And listening to the advice other people are giving. It might be 8 or 9 of us in the group.
Yeah.
But anyway, this was like, we were just nominated by somebody in the local county enterprise board here to go on to it. And we were a finalist, and you have to talk about your business in front of a lot of people over the year. So it was a good exercise in pitching your business as well.
Well, especially to people who know nothing about it. I mean, yeah.
And then getting advice from them, and you go, oh, it's a left of field, not the kind of advice you get from other animation people or media people, different type of advice. Yeah.
This podcast is made possible thanks to the support of the awesome Libery Consulting. Libery offers specially tailored industry-related training courses. Check them out at liberyconsulting.com. That's LIBERI consulting.com. You can also find links to their fantastic courses on the Festivus website.
It sounds like, as we've been talking, you've mentioned a lot of people who've, gave you guys advice and gave you, Paul, advice sort of as the business was building. And then you talked about, when you first started off, you were sort of training people as you were creating animation. Is mentoring and training younger generations of creative talent important to you?
Yeah. I mean, I think we've a really good system in the studio now that people love. Like, I mean, there's 170 in the studio now. It can fluctuate between that and 200 or 250. It's been up to 400, which was too much at one point, but so we would have supervisors, leads, and then assistant leads. So there's always somebody people can learn from. And then we try as well within the studio that if there's a job opening, we always advertise it across the studio first. So somebody who might be in background who really wants to get into storyboarding or really wants to get into something else can try out for it. So they can test within the studio, and a lot of people have jumped from one area to the next and then get mentored in that area by the supervisor or the lead they're working with. So we think that's important, and our HR, we really try to encourage people's career development, whether it's with us or somebody else. So yeah, like I found that it's the only way to learn is through the mentor. Almost, I mean, I'd learned that business through people I knew. James Flynn was another great man from Ireland here. He passed away a few years ago, but he became the exec producer on The Secret of Kells, and the film board could see we had interest from France, we had interest from Belgium. We just needed somebody to help tie it all together because there's still no idea how to close that much complicated financing from France, Belgium, Ireland, sales agents financing, and then we had to deal with the tax shelter here in Ireland and all these complicated financial sort of trees of contracts. And so they attached I met a guy called James Flynn who really then helped mentor through that whole process, which took years. Yeah. So I feel the same. It's the same, I think, in animation. Like the relationship with a supervisor and leads and animators and their supervisors and leads is really strong, and that's why we're all in house. We don't do remote work. We've like maybe 1-2 people that are remote who've been with us years and they just can't at the moment be in the studio. But our whole studio is everybody that's working on the feature film I'm working on now, for example, are all in house. And the people we work with actually in France, Folivary, as well, and we co-produce with on many things, they're pretty much all in house as well. I think it's really interesting. We did contemplate, we did manage when it was remote, but I find that the mentorship and the learning, it's hard to replace that without being in person. Even just the way people speak to each other, like how do you speak to each other? How do you behave in a large group of people? Even when you go out, and then it creates these brilliant bonds, and it creates relationships. It creates all kinds of things. It's great to see, actually, like one big family almost. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very much it's still very much, as I said earlier, very much a people industry, doesn't it? Like I could imagine, I've never been an animator myself, but I can imagine that environment where people sort of being able to go over to something like, I can't quite nail this bit. What do you reckon? Or walking past somebody else thinking, that's genius. Can I try that?
Yeah, it's totally that. It's very hard to do that when you're remote. Very hard to even know who do I feel comfortable approaching. Like maybe, I feel a bit nervous about approaching my supervisor. I know I'm supposed to do that, or my lead, but I'm going to go up and have a cup of tea with this other animator who I'm friendly with and sort of ask advice first. And then, so it's a lot about face-to-face communication and gelling and getting to know people. And it's a very skills-based, 2D animation is very skills-based, and there's things you can learn from each other. And it's very hard to do that, I think, not like just over the shoulder, not being able to be over the shoulder and being able to draw together. Yeah. I mean, we did cope with it during the time, and it was funny because when we went remote, people really loved it after a while, and it was hard to get them back in the studio. And then when we got everybody back in the studio, and then there was another outbreak, and people didn't want to leave. People didn't want to leave. Then I can understand it when you're in a big city though, and the commute is a nightmare. And, rather than spending 3 hours going in and out of work every day, or 2 hours getting in and out of work to get in a big city, I can totally understand that. But Kilkenny is such a small place.
Yeah.
Everybody can walk or cycle. Very few people need to drive unless they have kids, maybe. And they're having to drop them to school. But generally speaking, it's nicer just to go to a nice studio rather than trying to set up in your kitchen or in your house. Yeah. It's just like walking to work. Walking to a nice place.
I was going to ask you why Kilkenny, but as opposed to sort of a Dublin or a bigger city.
Yeah, I suppose we've always the first reason was because of the free space. We weren't sure whether we'd be here forever, and it's small. It doesn't even have a third level. Doesn't even have a university here or a college here, but the energy of Kilkenny is really good. It's a great music town. It's great art. It's got a great arts festival. During the summer, it's got a festival every bloody month, like a comedy festival. It's got a rhythm and roots festival. It's got a economics festival called Kilkenomics, which is comedians and economists coming for a week, which is excellent. Really, really funny. Where it's the comedians are talking to the economists, trying to figure out, like the comedians act like the dumb people that all of us are in the audience that ask stupid questions of the economists, and vice versa. And so the town has got a pretty good vibe. It's small, and in the winter it can, I suppose, there's. At the beginning, when it was just us, maybe there wasn't a lot of culturally similar things. But now that we have Lighthouse here as well, which is another studio which we co-own with Mercury Filmworks, and ourselves, there's a lovely there is a nice buzz of animation. And even what I'm finding lovely now is, because the one thing that we did miss from Dublin is just that, being able to go out and meet somebody in the industry and talk straight away. Like you could go for a drink or go for dinner with somebody and very quickly. That's why I travel so much, to get that. Yeah. I travel to all the markets to get that vibe. And then, but now with the length of time the company's been here, and the fact that you don't have big commutes and it's a bit cheaper than the bigger cities, and now there's some ex-Salooners and ex-Lighthouse people even setting up their own studios, even trying to do their own shorts, but they're living in Kilkenny and maybe working remotely for other people as well. So what we're finding is, even if we have neither work in Lighthouse nor Cartoon Saloon, some people are choosing to stay in Kilkenny, live here and work remotely for others, or go up and down. So it's becoming a nice bit of a magnet for talent. Yeah,
that's brilliant. You were saying earlier on about the studio and everything is 2D and it's a very sort of collegiate atmosphere. Have you or the studio ever thought about 3D? Is it something that interests you at all?
I think I think back in Puff and Rock days, we did consider it as a CGI show. We were such fans of Pokio. We're like, oh God, that's such great CGI. They managed to do brilliant CGI. And we found it difficult to see really good CGI in TV series. 2D it always felt you could do better animation for less money in TV series. With 2D, you could be snappier, you'd be punchier. I found CGI difficult enough to love in TV. And then we did consider it at a certain point when it started to get really good. People started getting really good at CGI for television and using it economically and using it differently, and really designing it. But I think we just decided it felt like it would be turning a big ship in a different direction. We had this pipeline that all our crew was used to, and we said, feck it, we'll just lean even heavier into the 2D. Back for Secret of Kells, it was a big advantage. I think when our first film came out, Pixar, Toy Story done out, which is amazing, and all these, there was nobody making 2D, and we even leaned more heavily into the 2D nature of The Secret of Kells. It was a bit like thinking about, Tom always talks about it, like when photography came in and what did the painters do? There were a lot of figurative painters, and then photography came in. What did they do? Well, then the abstract art and expressionism appeared. All this different, really beautiful, different language of painting came out. And with 2D, you can do all that. You can create different types of language in 2D. That you're not stuck to like a 3D environment. You can be very abstract and very expressive. And we tried to lean into that a great deal, and design a great deal, and make it look like an illustrated book. Like really lean into the concept books more than the we'd look at. So we just lean into it, and I think because Secret of Kells was so 2D in that field of CGI stuff, we sort of stood out, or we popped out a little bit with people.
Yeah,
we were
I
able
think
to,
you've certainly got a brand's not the right word, but you've got a sort of a style and a look that I suppose to a certain extent you could look at and go, oh yeah, that's a Cartoon Saloon film. I know where that's come from.
Yes, it has been that. Even though we've been trying to do things and make them look a bit different from time to time, there is a kind of vibe. All right, there's certainly a vibe that sort of goes through them all, and I think that's because a lot of artists. I think we're at 26 years now. We're starting to see it in young people's work as well. We're beginning to see it come back round again a little. We're seeing our stuff reflected back to us somehow, which is quite nice by different art. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you've over the years, I mean, you've won. I mean, you've got Oscar and BAFTA nominations. You've got awards from around the world. And talking about Manchester and having a beer with Rob, you at the Manchester Animation Festival. You awarded a fellowship, and yes. I think. In that fellowship, Maff said, it's rare for a studio to excel in even one format with a single film, but Cartoon Saloon's ability to consistently deliver work of such high caliber across all sorts of mediums secures its place in the global story of animation. What do those awards and peer accolades mean to you personally?
Well, those nice. The Manchester one was really lovely because we got quite emotional. Because what happens is we're celebrating 25 years. It's lovely to have. Because it's going back. We're always in Kilkenny making the stuff. It's rare you get your head above water and meet the fans, and meet people who've watched your films and like it. So we were overwhelmed in Manchester with young students and young people who had basically maybe grown up with Song of the Sea or Wolfwalkers or even Secret of Kells. They would have been really young, and they had a big influence on them. And for many of them, why they got into animation and got to school. So that's really heartening. Like that's really like there was one animator came up to us and she had the badges all over her. She had lots of characters. She was a super, super smart, super great questions. And I saw her drawings and she showed me her work, really talented artist. But she had spent her life like wanting to probably join the studio at some point. But that was really emotional, saying, no, she basically said to me and Tom when we walked out there, you don't realize how much you've affected people's lives, how much you've changed my life. And I was like, oh God, that's such a nice thing for you to say. You never hear that kind of stuff. So those kind of things are lovely. And the awards are great. You get the Oscar nominations. They're great crack going on those trips. Obviously, for all kinds of reasons, you get to go to America and drive around a nice car in America, as we always used to say when the kids, driving around a big car in America. I always get a nice car when I go over there. I rent one of these vintage cars with like a last time I went, I got a Cadillac Coupe de Ville 1965.
Whoa.
You kick off this Turo app. It's great. I highly recommend the Turo app. You can get these really nice cars for like the same price as a Hertz or some rental.
Really?
But we love the trips to the States, love the trips to LA and California to the sunshine. And then you get to hang out with a few celebs and rub shoulders with stars and whatnot and the glitterati of Hollywood. It's great fun. And get patted on the back by everybody. Sure, that's great. It lasts for a while and then you're back in the grindstone to make another film for like 4 years, and you poke your head up above the water, and maybe you're lucky that people like it, and people give you a nod and give you a nomination. You get to go to another party. Which, I mean, it's wonderful. It's great. Yeah. The best part of the Oscars, I'd have to say, is going to the luncheon. It's even better than the ceremony. You get to go to lunch about a couple of weeks before the ceremony with other nominees, so it's just nominees and their guests and the governors, and you go for like a big lunch and then a nice picture, a nice photo. I remember being called up after Clint Eastwood when I was there nominated, and I went up to him and I says, "Look," he said, "Congratulations, son." And I was like, "Congratulations, you too, sir." He shook his head. And then you're just could be with anybody. And then the first year, myself and Tom sat down and they just sit you on tables and you get to sit with everybody. And that's kind of nicer than even the award, the ceremony, because everybody feels like a winner in the room and everybody's in great mood. And I remember meeting Quentin Tarantino there and Sandra Bullock and Michael Keaton and Sigourney Weaver and James Cameron in there. Yeah,
wow.
Myself and Tom were just standing there having a wee glass of champagne, and Quentin Tarantino shows up and he says, "What are you guys in for?" And we says, "Oh,
is that right?" It's
just like that. You're standing there. It's like going to a little champagne reception, and then you go and sit for lunch.
That's amazing.
You could be sitting with anybody. They mix you up, which is nice. They just mix everybody up. And then you get a big photo. They do a little presentation where they talk to you about not speaking too long when if you win. That kind of thing, and the order of events when the Oscars comes around, and then you get a kind of class photo which everybody gets to keep of all the nominees of that year, it's very nice. And then a few parties around it, and it is a great time to go knocking on a door to see if you can get some money for the next film.
Yeah, I was going to say,
you have to use that. Use that gap when you're not a loser or a winner. You go and we've had things funded in that space of time between the Oscar nominated. Well, I just remember being able to get Puff and Rock launched. Puff and Rock getting that financing from Netflix from Tamara Rothenberg, who was one of two people working in Netflix in kids television then, back in the day when there was only like a handful of people in Netflix. And I know, do you know those meetings you don't forget where usually to get a TV show off the ground, you work for months and years to try and get one piece of money from somebody. And then, so we had a few broadcasters and we met Tamara and we showed her Puff and Rock. This was just in the week running up. We'd found an email from Netflix. I think Jerry had found one email from somebody on Netflix and asked. Myself and Tom went in and we showed her the trailer we made for Puff and Rock. We had Chris O'Dowd and we had a bit of music. And she says, "Oh, I really like this. Can I buy it?" I said, yeah, sure. Like, can I buy 33? I went, yeah, sound. Yeah, you can buy 33. Actually, she rang the next day and says, "Would you be could I get 79 instead? Would you be interested if I give you more money if you made 79 episodes?" So that was the good old days. That was different days.
Yeah.
And so we realized, we have to make 79 now. But it wasn't, we had great partners elsewhere in Europe, but this closed it all. This put us into production, so those are nice times.
Right place, right time.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like you clearly have done and continue to work really, really hard at making this all happen.
I think that even the last year has been the hardest year I've ever worked, actually. But anyway, yes, go on.
But I was going to ask you what you do, how you balance things out, with work and home and family life. Have you got a good work-life balance?
Yeah, I think I do. We're very strict. We introduced a thing in work. Like, we used to work all hours for sure, even over Christmas back in the day when you're starting out as a company and you're trying to get your first few films done. Tom and Nora worked like non-stop. I'd be able to go have the excuse, I have to go home and see my family in Roscommon. I'd take off and they'd be still around here, Kilkenny, doing stuff. But we did try to do something there now as the company grew, where we really made it strict that people couldn't work after certain hours. We're 9 to 5, in fact, which might be different to most studios.
I didn't know that.
We're 9 to 5, 5 days a week, and we make sure we try to schedule our productions for 9 to 5 work, no weekend work, no. If you need to work at the weekend or overtime, you take days in lieu, but we try to make that very rare. Usually it happens at a little bit of a crunch time on a project.
Sure.
We did try to make it, we actually did a survey with everybody, and one of the questions was if you could have this or this. And most people said, if we could just get home an hour earlier, if we could really get, we used to be 9 to 6. And so we just, so it says, look, we'll do 9 to 5 and we'll test it out for a while. And we didn't see any dip in productivity. In fact, I'd say we increased.
Interesting.
If we looked at here, because people really appreciated it. They get to go home before it gets dark during the autumn and winter. And what I find great about Kilkenny again is like I'm home in 15 minutes. I can pick up my daughter in 15 minutes. So I have a pretty good balance. I can be home. So we've tried to balance that out. We were very imbalanced in the early days. We were working all the time. And then when it comes to the travel and those kind of things, I really just love that travel and the work travel abroad. I don't mind how many hours I spend over there. I could stay up all night. But when I'm home, I'm pretty good balance. Yeah.
Would you have any hidden talents? Are you into, I don't know, cooking, or do you play a musical instrument or anything like that?
I can do a bit of beatbox.
Can you?
I did do that at Cartoon Forum. I won't try now on the podcast, but I can do a pretty mean beatboxing. Yeah,
is that right?
I did it. Yeah. I did it with an Irish guy who was pitching his show. Pink Kong were doing their rap show, and I bet him. I can do beatbox. And he laughed, and I says, "No, seriously, let's go up." And he was like, "No way." And we rapped in front of the Cartoon Forum crowd, and I did a bit of beatboxing behind him, and it was quite successful. I thought we should probably take this on tour. No, but that's my silly beatbox. I could do a pretty mean fart beatbox with my hands as well. Yeah, so like make fart sounds with my hands.
You've got to do some. You've got to do something.
Can I do? I've got my ring. Hold on. Yeah, so that's probably,
just genius.
Yeah. That's my hands now. That's my hands.
I would
have been funnier if I'd said it was. I can just do fart beatbox and just not tell you. Say it was my hands for the podcast listeners.
It's just that's just conjuring up an image that may never leave me now.
We should actually edit that bit out.
We should edit that.
Yeah, that's my hidden talent. Is like I do a bit. I do enjoy doing a bit of voice acting on the things, which is great. But all kinds of creative style of things, I just love it. I remember back in the day we did some sound design for Nora's film From Darkness, and discovering that if you twist a leather glove, it's like the sound of footsteps in the snow. And I thought, God, that's great. You twist a leather glove, and that's how so literally having to go in and figure out sound effects. I mean, that's what's great about animation. It's like you can get involved in all aspects of it and discover stuff. It's great.
It is. Listen, we're sort of coming towards the end of this, and I just wanted to ask you, one sort of final question. So we've sort of heard all about you, the kids and illustrations and the caricatures in Greece and everything else, and the journey of you as business and creative and 26 years of Cartoon Saloon. If you weren't the CEO of Cartoon Saloon, what do you think you might be doing?
Well, you know what? I can't even technically say I'm CEO anymore, because Jerry's basically been taking that role, and we have a new person coming in to be announced soon.
Watch this space, right? Yeah.
What a wonderful person who's going to take Jerry's place as CEO. So I am sort of if I wasn't doing that, I'd be directing, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now, which is directing a feature film, which I'm really enjoying. I think there's, when you're younger and you look back, says what avenue could you have taken? I think another avenue might have been doing some drama. I really did enjoy. I didn't get to do much drama as a kid. I would love to have done a bit more of that. I did it actually, amateur drama I did a couple of plays in Kilkenny, with a couple of theatre groups, and it was brilliant for just getting over the pitching. You know, when you had to pitch cartoon form, and getting over the fear of pitching and sales pitch, it would really help the producing side of things, doing a bit of acting on stage, to get over that fear of being in public, which still terrifies me when I do it.
Does it really, after all this time?
Not as much as it used to, but and certainly not one-on-one. But in front of an audience and doing any kind of speech and any kind of, if you're in any ways in the development, in the business affairs, you normally have to do a bit of get up in front of people and talk. But that I would have loved to have done a bit more acting. I think I did it. I do enjoy it when I do it, and a bit more music. I played the piano a bit, but there's nothing stopping me. I can still do I always think, like, if I really, really was that keen, I'd be doing more of it, and I don't. I'm so busy with the directing. I don't do as much as maybe I should, actually, to give myself a little bit of a variety. Yeah.
A bit of a breather.
But generally speaking, I'm quite lucky. I'm very lucky because I really enjoy the producing too, and I'm looking forward to, when I finish this production, I'm going to help on some other productions as a producer and try to get them made. So I'll go back out. I'm looking forward to seeing some people back out in the market again. Yeah.
Wow. There you go. Paul, I can't thank you enough. I know you've got a good work-life balance, but squeezing this in today, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
No, not at all.
Well, there you go. What a lovely chap, and what a lovely chat. Our eternal thanks to Paul for taking the time to talk to Julian today on this week's episode. This podcast is only made possible with a lot of behind-the-scenes support and logistical help from Janet Balmforth at Liberry Consulting, and the wonderfully erudite and charming Julian Scott. Our eternal gratitude to them both. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends and colleagues. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we look forward to welcoming you back for the next. Take care out there.